Welcome everyone to this tajziya. Let's jump right in because today we are unpacking a story of absolute monumental proportions. I mean, we're not starting in the Black Mountains of Makkah right away. Actually, our story begins thousands of miles away in the lush, fertile lands of Iraq and Sham. Picture a world completely shrouded in the darkness of idolatry, ruled by arrogant kings and stone empires. And in the middle of all that, there's literally just one man standing as the voice of truth. So settle in, we're going to walk through the chronological epic of exactly how the most sacred house on earth was built. Think about this for a second. How did the absolute most barren desert on earth become its most visited sanctuary? It's an incredible paradox, right? This whole story is just a breathtaking transformation. It's a journey driven not by crazy architecture or endless wealth, but by immense, unimaginable sacrifice and, honestly, spectacular divine miracles. This isn't just history, guys. It's a blueprint of faith that literally altered the destiny of humanity forever. All right, moving into section 1, a journey to the desert, the ultimate sacrifice. To really understand this journey, we have to start with the great Prophet Ibrahim. This was a man of just unbelievable courage. I mean, he looked the tyrannical kingdom rude directly in the eyes. He was literally thrown into a roaring ocean of fire, but by divine command, that fire became cool and perfectly safe for him. Crazy, right? After leaving his homeland, he waded into extreme old age, his hair turning completely white, before finally being blessed with a beautiful son, Ismail. But almost immediately, a massive new trial begins. Look at this stark contrast. Behind him, he's leaving the lush, green, fertile homelands of Iraq and Sham. And ahead of him, the terrifying, sun-scorched, entirely empty valley of Mecca. We're talking blistering heat, scorching winds, and absolutely zero signs of life. Yet, acting entirely on divine command, Prophet Ibrahim leaves his beloved wife Hajar and his infant son Ismail right there in this wasteland. And when Hajar asked him, "Is this Allah's command?" and he said yes, her immediate unwavering response was just incredible. She simply said that her Lord would never let them be ruined. And you know what? That absolute trust was rewarded almost immediately. As their thirst reached a seriously deadly peak in that desolate valley, a literal miracle erupted right out of the parched earth. Zamzam. Now, this wasn't just a spring of water. It was a divine lifeline. The sudden appearance of Zamzam was really the first major turning point here. It was basically an undeniable announcement that the dark destiny of this completely barren valley was about to change forever. Okay. Moving right along to section 2, finding the lost foundations, reclaiming the past. So fast forward a few years. That infant Ismail is now a strong young man. Prophet Ibrahim returns to the valley and the father and son share this deeply emotional reunion. But Abraham wasn't just there to say hello. He revealed a massive divine mission. Allah had commanded him to build a house of monotheism. But here's the secret. They weren't building it from scratch. They actually had to build it on the original foundations laid by Prophet Adam, which had been buried deep underground by the terrifying waves of Noah's flood. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer impossibility of the task. I mean, how do you find foundations buried for centuries in a vast, shifting desert? And we aren't talking about a rough estimate here. It had to be exact, not a single inch of difference from the original borders. In an empty desert with no maps, no GPS, no markers, how on earth do you locate the exact millimeter of Prophet Adam's ancient foundations? Well, the answer is Sakina. This was a miraculous, calming cloud, or as some traditions actually describe it, a special wind angel. And this wasn't your everyday breeze. It swept through the valley, clearing the ground perfectly, almost like a giant broom, until it just stopped. It stopped and cast a shadow over one very specific spot. A divine voice then commanded Ibrahim to dig exactly within the shadow of that cloud. No more, no less. And guys, as they dug, the ancient, robust, green-colored foundations from Prophet Adam's era literally emerged from the earth. How amazing is that? Which brings us to section 3, building the sacred house, a labor of love and miracles. So the foundations were found, but now the real, back-breaking physical labor began. Just try to imagine the blistering, savage heat of Mecca. We're talking about a place where even putting a bare foot on the ground at noon is totally unbearable. In this intense environment, you have an elderly, yet incredibly resolute father, and his strong, obedient son, raising the walls of the Kaaba entirely by themselves. Ismail would hike all the way up into the rough, rocky mountains, carrying these incredibly heavy stones on his back. Then Ibrahim would take them with his blessed hands and meticulously place them on those ancient foundations. And despite the sweat and the sheer exhausting labor of it all, their faces just radiated this profound spiritual peace. As they worked, they continually recited a prayer that's actually preserved in the Quran forever. "O our Lord, accept this from us. Indeed, you are the hearing, the knowing." Eventually, though, the walls grew way too high for Prophet Ibrahim to reach. And remember, there were no cranes, no scaffolding, no extra laborers they could just go hire. So the Creator provided. Ismail brought over a heavy, square stone for his father to stand on. This became known as the Maqam Ibrahim. Now get this. This stone miraculously acted like an automatic lift. It literally rose into the air as Ibrahim built higher and lowered him back down when he needed more stones. And even more incredibly, this solid rock softened up like wet clay, perfectly preserving Prophet Ibrahim's footprints. Those footprints are still there today, and it remains a mandatory prayer spot for completing the tawaf. Absolutely mind-blowing. Moving on to section 4, the Black Stone's arrival, a piece of paradise. Okay, so the construction was nearing completion. The Kaaba stood there in all its majestic simplicity. But there was one absolutely crucial element missing. They needed a highly distinct cornerstone to mark the exact starting point of the tawaf, the circumambulation. It had to be completely unique from all the other rocks in the valley. So, Ibrahim sends Ismail out to find this special cornerstone. Ismail searches the rough black mountains in the grueling heat, gets completely exhausted, but finds absolutely nothing worthy. But when he returns to the Kaaba in despair, he is completely shocked. Sitting right there, placed beautifully in the corner, was the Hajr-e-Aswad. This was a stone glowing with such an intense, pure white light that it literally illuminated the surroundings. Prophet Ibrahim explained to him that he didn't need earthly stones anymore, because the angel Jibreel had brought this radiant sapphire directly from the treasures of paradise. Now, sadly, human sins would eventually strip away its light and turn it black, but its heavenly origin remains a total marvel. Now for section 5, the universal call to Hajj echoes through time. So, the house is finally complete. The Hajr-e-Aswad is set perfectly in place. But right then, Allah gives Prophet Ibrahim another monumental and seemingly impossible command. Invite people from all corners of the earth to come perform Hajj. Now put yourself in Ibrahim's shoes for a second. He looks around. It is just miles and miles of empty desert, dark mountains, and blowing sand. There isn't even a bird in sight, let alone actual humans. He hesitates for a moment, asking humbly, "Who will hear my weak voice in this vast emptiness?" And the universe-altering response came down from the heavens. "O Ibrahim, your job is only to call. It is our job to deliver this voice to the hearts and souls of people." What followed literally broke the laws of physics. Ibrahim stood up on Mount Abu Qabays, placed his hands to his ears, and shouted the invitation out into the emptiness. Instantly, the howling winds completely stopped. The mountains literally bowed their heads in respect to remove any physical barrier. But the true miracle? Allah carried that single human voice not just to the people alive on earth at that moment, but deep into the realm of spirits. It reached the unborn souls of every single person destined to be born all the way until the Day of Judgment. Let that sink in for a second. Of course, centuries rolled on. After the passing of Ibrahim and Ismail, the guardianship of the Kaaba naturally shifted. The keys first went to the tribe of Jurham, who had migrated over from Yemen. They ruled Mecca for a really long time. But as often happens, the intoxication of power and sin eventually blinded them. Because of this deep corruption, they faced divine punishment, and a completely new tribe, Banu Huziyah, stepped in, drove them out, and took control of the sanctuary. All of this brings us to a final, deeply personal question for you to think about. Is your desire to visit the Kaaba today actually your soul's ancient labaik? Think back to that call Ibrahim made into the empty desert. Tradition holds that whichever soul in that spiritual realm answered his call by saying labaik, which means "here I am," had the blessing of visiting the Kaaba written directly into their destiny. So if you feel that incredible pulling yearning in your heart today to see the sacred house, realize this. It is not a new feeling. It is the direct, enduring echo of your very own soul answering Prophet Ibrahim across thousands of years. Mind-blowing, right? Thank you so much for joining me on this tajziah. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.